Social Show live with Viwe Cholwana, only on brandlive.co.za.
Good morning and welcome to The Social Show. My name is Viwe Cholwana and you are listening to all your news that has to do with social investment, social responsibility, as well as shared value. And of course, if you don't have enough understanding or enough information about what this sector has to give and what it's done wrong, what it's done right, you are of course listening to the right station. And if you want to join into the conversation today, you can go to @BrandLiveRadio on Twitter or at Social One TV on Twitter, or you can go to Facebook, www.brandlive.co.za, and I will make sure that I read out your comments. Also, if you would like to actually call in, please don't be afraid to at 011-083-8606. It is a blue Monday, gloomy in Johannesburg. It's been raining the entire weekend, but that doesn't stop us from going straight ahead to the news. South Africa and Chad on Sunday, the 8th of October, signed an agreement that will see the reintroduction next year of critically endangered black rhino to the Central African country decades after it was last seen there. Environment ministers from the two countries signed a memorandum of understanding which will allow the translocation of 6 black rhino from South Africa to Chad, said a government in a statement. The last time a rhino was spotted in Chad was in 1972, according to official documents Chad submitted to South Africa. The animals should be airlifted to Chad's Zakuma National Park sometime next year. Abby Mudise, who is the Environmental Affairs Ministry, also said that they are looking at around March or April or May. In other news, the craze for tourists taking selfies alongside wild animals, then posting them on Instagram, is fueling cruel treatment of iconic species in the Amazon, activists warn. The charity World Animal Protection said in a report that Instagram has seen a 292% increase in wildlife selfies since 2014 around the world. Of these, more than 40% of the humans involved are hugging or inappropriately interacting with the wild animal. World Animal Protection said in a report released last Tuesday that the animals are captured and often battered to make them perform better for tourism businesses. And lastly, in our news, social investment consultancy Trilog has launched an online resource portal offering learnings and lessons on social economic development from South African companies. The Trilog Knowledge Hub offers access to lead practice content, case studies, as well as research. Launched in collaboration with various brands, the portal currently offers information on school leadership and management. And this includes financial literacy, philanthropy, and maths and science education. Several more topics are in development, with a target of companies funding topics across 12 development sectors, spanning the enterprise development to ICT in education. Knowledge partners such as the university, think tanks, and research institutions will also contribute academic input and thought leadership on specific topics and help to source and vet content. Trilog MD Nick Rockney said that we decided to launch the portal with corporate partners based on their interest in playing an active role in advancing the thinking and to lead practices in development sectors. And that concludes our news for the day.
brandlive.co.za.
Have you ever thought about the power of social media? Social media has the power to make your business grow. Grow! Yeah. Why don't you let us manage your social media? Because our business is to see your business grow. Visit us at www.bstownmedia.co.za.
So this weekend, while I was at home, trying not to get rained on, get sick, I watched a few films. And I know that's what you do usually when the weather is kind of gloomy. You just want to sit at home, snuggle up, and watch a movie. And I happened to have gotten and rented out the Deepwater Horizon film. And I'd spoken about Deepwater Horizon before on the show. And Deepwater Horizon was actually, I know that you know that it was where the largest oil leakage ever happened in it was in the Gulf of Mexico, and it really was just one of the worst oil spills of our lifetime. And still this day, there's nothing that can really say that it can take over that role. So Deepwater Horizon was a 2016 film, which is quite recent. It was last year, American disaster film based on actual events, and it was directed by Peter Berg from a screenplay by Matthew Michael Carnahan as well as Matthew Sand. And it really took a deeper dive in the Deepwater Horizon explosion that happened quite a while ago. And it generally got quite good views, positive reviews, and grossed over 120 million rands worldwide, which made me kind of happy, because sometimes when we have films that are based on, trying to show some sort of social good and get people educated on things that are happening and how corporates have failed to really be responsible about their practices, or in that specific case, on April 20th, 2010, Deepwater Horizon, an oil drilling rig operated by the private contractor TransOcean, was going to be, working on behalf of BP. And at that time, there were quite a lot of for several years, there were false safety this false safety information that was coming from the TransOcean and BP, from a regulating perspective, and it just didn't turn out well. It turned out that when they conducted their tests, when they needed to get the seal well, it just ended up malfunctioning, and it had obviously the biggest blowout of our time in accordance to oil spills. And even now, I think Deepwater Horizon received, one of the biggest responses from audiences, because not only did it show that the negligence of our corporates that are working in these spaces, but it also showed that, social responsibility from a broader perspective, from an international perspective, didn't really have strong enough policies, didn't really have strong enough rules and regulations around checking and fact checking. And also we also saw that corporates like to cut corners, because finances are a big part of whether or not safety rules and regulations and responsibility and the community will be served, right? Money plays a big role. But what I'm getting at is that these kind of movies really do give you a sense of not only information, but also just a sense of how much more responsible we need to be in being more heard, being more vocal in the kind of atrocities that are happening on a daily, that are man-made, right? Nobody can say that the drilling was a natural disaster. It was man-made. It was people who were not, using the right precautions. And now we know, and BP took a huge beat down for that. And at least what I loved about their response to not only the movie, but to the entire actual spill, they took responsibility as much as they could. They could have taken more, but they took a responsibility, and since then have still been trying to make sure that they get the oil stain and the oil a drip off of the sea and the ocean, and making sure that everything goes back to normal. So many animals were affected and died, and so many got deformities because of the oil that eventually contaminated the water. It was a really sad movie. I actually was cringing through the entire movie, because I was just like, I can't believe this actually happened. I can't believe people were this stupid. I can't believe people were this negligent. Of course, a few people died from the explosion and from the oil dripping. I'm sure you guys can watch the movie now. If you watch the movie, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. I don't want to give too much away, but a few people died, a few casualties, a few people were injured. Hopefully, we won't see that anytime in our lifetime or in the lifetime of our kids, because it was just really negligence in retrospect. But today I just thought about talking about films and how important they have been in, really doing some social good. A good film does more than just entertain or fill seats at the cinema. It also has the power to kind of change the hearts and minds, and sometimes society more widely. Art can touch people and make them open up. And I'm just going to talk about a few films. I haven't watched all of them, and hopefully it will encourage you guys to watch them when you're not doing anything this week, that have been hugely influential in raising awareness and bringing about change in areas from climate change to gay rights. I'm just going to throw around a few ideas, and if you have any films that you've watched that you think are worthy to be mentioned on the show, please don't be afraid to go to at Brand Live Radio on Twitter or on Facebook. You can go to www.brandlive.co.za. If you want to snuggle up and get your popcorn ready and just jot a few of these movies down so that you can have an understanding of the world, man. An understanding of what's happening in the rest of the world beyond your own borders, beyond your own community, beyond your own continent. You can really find out what's going on and how you can help, because that's what we're here for. We're here to help. We're here to change lives, and we're here to save people that can be saved, right? The first movie that I am going to speak about is one called A Girl in the River. So around the world, over 5,000 women's lives are taken each year in so-called honor killings. A Girl in the River is from the Oscar winner and young global leader Sharman Obaid-Chinoy. I'm so bad with names, so forgive me. But she tells the story of Saba, I think it's Kasera, a young woman who survived an attempted murder at the hands of her father. Her only crime, falling in love with the wrong person. And even after the events, Obed Chinoy found that the father could not understand why what he had done was wrong. He just felt justified in trying to kill his own daughter. He felt it was his duty as his father to protect his family from the dishonor Saba brought on them by falling in love and getting married. Not everyone agreed with him. And, I think recently Pakistani Prime Minister said that he will try and change the law on honor killing after watching this film. But you never know. But I mean, that's the power of film. When you see the actual change in the policy, you try to see whether or not the presidents, the ministers, those in charge, those who do have some sort of say, have something spark in them to change this atrocity, because it really is, I think it's, for me, just seeing it and reading about it, it's just, a culture that has gone really wrong somewhere, where you feel that you can take the life of somebody because they fall in love with someone else. And the fact that, dishonor is far worse than murder, which is something that I personally am struggling to grapple with. So that's A Girl in a River. Please find the movie. It's an HBO. It's a documentary film. And I think you'd really learn a lot from it, and really learn how to just know about what's happening in the rest of the world and how you can do your part to help in Pakistan. And if you are Pakistani, it'd be quite interesting to find out what's going on that side. And if you know anything about whether or not the Prime Minister has changed, policy, you can let me know on our Twitter page. The second one I wanted to talk to you about is called Blackfish. Now, in 2015, SeaWorld announced that it was ending its controversial Shamu show, and replacing it with an all-new Okra experience to focus on the natural behavior of whales. Although they didn't say much, their decision was almost certainly a result of the public outcry created by the 2013 documentary Blackfish. Now, the film drew attention to the dangers of keeping orcas in captivity for both the animals and their human trainers. And in the years following its release, the documentary took its toll on the company's reputation and visitor numbers and share prices. And you saw a significant drop in their prices and their visitors, as well as their overall reputation. Again, a good example of a film doing some good, people watching it, people being completely outraged and just not supporting the cause, and not giving their power to the cause, not giving their energy, not giving their money. Because let's just face it, if you aren't, as a human being, as an individual, if you don't participate in a specific discourse, you do sort of have some sort of power that you take away from it. And the more that we do that, the more that we come together and we raise this awareness, and we stop supporting things that are not really, conducive for not only our environment and our communities, but also for our animals and just for our moral and logic and our ethics. We're able to really change people's lives and change them for the better, change futures, right? Change how our kids will grow up and how other people's kids in different countries will grow up, and how love looks, and all of these amazing things. So it's very important that we watch these films so that we can be informed about the atrocities all over the world. So Blackfish is one of those really amazing films. I really loved that the fact that people were so aggressive about their feelings towards the controversial show. Another one which is quite a blockbuster hit, which I don't really know if a lot of people would consider it a social good film, but it's The Day After Tomorrow. Now, this blockbuster hit is shows off the world as it's facing the second ice age. A tidal wave submerges in New York City. Tornadoes rip through downtown Los Angeles, and hailstones in the size of grapefruits batter Tokyo. While the science behind the film was called out by many climatologists, it's still one of the most commercially successful movies of its time. And it's made over almost $500 million worldwide in just over a month. I wonder how much of that money actually went into more research as to whether or not this is going to be something that will happen. And if it is, how do people prevent it? How do people get more information as to how to protect themselves from these natural disasters? Now, according to Yale researchers, this is in the World Economic Forum, it also helped increase awareness on climate change and encouraged people to consider how their actions could help avert such an environmental crisis. Across the board, the movie appears to have had a strong influence on watchers' risk perceptions of global warming, the academics concluded. So another great thing about this movie is that it got a few more people talking about global warming, got a few more people understanding global warming, researching global warming, Googling global warming. And I think that's something that we all need to do. And we have done to some extent. I know a few people who actually, regardless of their jobs and what they do, they understand how important it is for us to be, environmentally friendly, environmentally conscious, to be a little bit more cognizant of our green economy. South Africa is one of the leading, green economies in our continent. So we've got sort of a new wave that's coming in, and I'm so excited about how it's going to unfold. And I think a lot of it had to do with movies such as these that really provoke that person watching to really be more conscious about the world that they live in. And we also see, like in the past few months, a lot of the hurricanes, a lot of the real horrible natural disasters, Hurricane Harvey to Maria to all of them, they all sort of play a role in this narrative. They all play a role in the fact that, as we go on with our lives, the world is changing, and we need to be responsible for every single action that we do, especially if we're living in this world. Are you recycling? Are you cognizant of, pollution? Are you looking at better ways of using materials? Instead of using plastic, are you using, glass? And if you're using plastic, are you, throwing it away in a means that is conducive to the environment? Are you making sure that your daily ritual, your daily routine, whether, it's driving to work and eating specific things, and how are you contributing to this conversation of global warming? And what is it that you were going to say in the next 10 to 15 years about your role in global warming or ending global warming? Before I go into other news, I'm just going to give you a little bit of a break. I know I've been speaking for a while, and we'll be back with more movies after this.
brandlive.co.za. Making a bold statement yet blending into the surrounding suburbs of Melville, 27 Boxes is a realization of edgy design and practical implementation. A radical departure from the shopping malls of our generation, yet not a return to the high streets of our youth. 27 Boxes showcases the best of a shopping centre set in a garden, surrounded by the bohemian suburb that is Melville. 27 Boxes, shop, play, eat. brandlive.co.za.
Yes, you're back on the social show with myself, viewer. We're running at 10 minutes to 10 right now. We've got 10 more minutes of the show left. And if you don't know and you just tuned in, we're talking about movies that have had an influential impact on how people see the world, on how people use their money, really, and on how corporates have really taken that responsibility role or haven't. And I just spoke of before the break, I spoke about Blackfish, a good movie to watch, A Girl in the River, as well as A Day After Tomorrow, which was a blockbuster hit. But there's so many more films that I'm just going to be talking about just to wrap up the show that I really hope that you look at and you watch. And I know a lot of them can seem quite heavy in content. A lot of them can seem quite depressing, but they're not meant to depress you. They're just here to let you know that this is an issue that's happening and you need to be aware of it, and you need to understand what your role is in playing it is. And because these problems are quite universal when you think about the themes, when you think about ritual killings or mutilation or that kind of thing. That's something that we have in Africa. If you think about global warming, we're not exempt from global warming and its occurrences. When we speak about the way in which our animals are being treated, something that we also have, problems that we have. So we all need to come up with solutions that are, even though they are global in form, that will also help every single space in South Africa and Africa as a whole. We are not exempt from these problems. Just because they feel far, they aren't. We're most likely to have all of these issues in our own backyards, and we just don't know. Another movie that I really wanted to talk about is Kathy Came Home. And why I love this is because it's a movie that talks about homelessness. And although homelessness is still described as an invisible problem, mainly because many of us find it easier to ignore, it's at least less of a taboo subject than it was in the past. This is because of Kathy Came Home. Now, Kathy Came Home was released in 1966 and nobody spoke about the issue. Homelessness had never been in the spotlight before the drama. Now, after the drama aired, all that changed. The sense of public outrage that this was happening sort of grew, and it became like a storm that gathered some sort of pace. At the same time, UK's first and leading charity on homelessness, Shelter, was founded. And even today, the impact of the film is still being felt. I mean, we are expecting that there would be a bit of a talk about it. This is what something that director Ken Lock said a while ago, but he did not expect that 40 years later we'd still be talking about it and still be dealing with homelessness. How many of you thought about homeless people during this past weekend? How many of you actually thought about them? And I don't mean in the sense of you drove past them and you saw them and you felt sorry for them. I mean, you sat at home and in your comfort, in your bed, in your space, you felt, damn, somebody is weathering the storm without any shelter, without any food, without any loved ones, just alone. These little kids that I see every single day on my way to work, where were they? Where did they go? Who helps them? Quite an interesting thing to think about. And Kathy Came Home is one of those movies that will really get you thinking about what it is that you're doing for the homeless and what can you do. I'm not saying open up your homes because you never know, but I'm saying that there's so much more that you could be looking at in terms of churches in your area. Maybe start a program where if the weather's really horrible, you have a space where the church knows that, or even if there's a bad forecast and we're experiencing some really bad weather, we know that the church will be open on that specific day, and you and a few of your friends come in and you cook something warm for them and you just let them get some shelter for a few until the weather passes. It's actually quite a hectic situation. There's so many things we could do. There's so many, non-expensive things that we could start for the homeless. So Kathy Came Home was one of the movies that sparked some heart rage. And I can't end off the show without talking about Super Size Me. I mean, this is an iconic film. A film that still, unfortunately, I don't think people will ever stop eating McDonald's. And I don't really think that's what he was trying to say. But what I think he was trying to say was we can't let fast food take over our eating habits. We can't think that just because it's fast, just because it's easy, it's healthy. If you think of the obesity epidemic in America and in Africa even, this is one of those movies that really changed and shocked a lot of people. Now, for an entire month, in an attempt to establish the damage fast food does to our bodies, Super Size Me director Morgan Spurlock ate only one thing: McDonald's. And after the experiment was over, he had gained about 25 pounds. His cholesterol levels had shot all the way up, and his doctor said he had the liver of an alcoholic. Documentary reignited the debate on fast food, everything from how bad it is for our health to how it's marketed at children. And a few weeks after the film was released, McDonald's ditched their supersize option and started introducing healthier items to its menu. And although they denied this was in response to the documentary. Again, if you think art has no power, if you're sitting at home, you're thinking documentaries can't do anything, they do. They really, really do. You see the changes when people watch and they have some sort of outcry, and then they stop buying. And you find that these corporates and these big establishments have to start grappling with the fact that people know the truth. And now they need to abide by the rules. They need to be responsible for the food that they're giving people. They need to be responsible for the fact that their food, if eaten for an entire month, could cause liver damage. That is something that is scary. And I mean, I usually eat McDonald's, once in a while. And I'm just thinking, even eating it once in a while is quite scary if it can cause liver damage. Quite a lot of things to think about when you're watching these amazing documentaries, amazing films, because they really show you the honest truth about what are you putting into your body, what are you doing to the environment, what specific customs and cultural beliefs have been doing to women. They're talking about animals and how people have been treating animals and how everything is really surrounded by an economic purpose. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with people wanting to thrive. But it's very important that we blow the whistle as the public, as creators, as directors, as film producers, as actors, that we blow the whistle when we see that they are not being responsible to the community. They're not being, they're not investing sufficiently in, surrounding the environment, the surrounding areas in which they operate in. They're not investing in proper regulation and policy so that nothing can spill and kill so many animals. We need to be a little bit more vocal about those things. And I'm so excited of the newer, documenters and the newer films that are going to be coming out that are carrying on with the cycle. I know there's a lot of movies around bullying, a lot of movies around being poverty, what poverty means and how poverty looks. There's a lot of movie around being the concept of sexuality and gender and race. So many things are being tackled through Film Force, through the eye of artists all around the world. And these are really helping us change and understand our own voices and our own power and how we can help minimize and decrease all of these horrific outcomes that we've seen. We don't want to repeat our pasts, right? Anyway, thank you so much for listening in on our show today. If you have any movies that you'd want to recommend for me to watch, please don't be afraid to go to @BrandLiveRadio on Twitter or on www.brandlive.co.za. Or if you have an initiative that is really mind-changing and mind-boggling, please don't be afraid to go to press@social-tv.co.za, and I will, with all my heart, try my best to get you on the show so that we can talk a little bit more about all the things that you are doing right for this community. My name is Cholwana, and this is The Social Show.
brandlive.co.za, harnessing the power of talk radio. brandlive.co.za. Guess who got brands talking? brandlive.co.za.